I never intended to look inside the glove compartment. My only goal was to sell the car. The loan payments were past due once more, and the bank's daily calls had become a relentless reminder. That morning, under a Seattle sky smudged with dreary, wet grays and the air clinging with the dampness of recent rain, I stood before Sarah's old sedan, telling myself, it's only a car yet. As my fingers neared the handle, a tremor ran through my hand. It had been 32 days since she had passed. 32 days since the hospital's call, their words like aneurysm and no time echoing in my mind. 32 days of my daughter, Lily, speaking to me in brief, 10-word bursts, mostly about school or household necessities. Even then, her words felt like shards from a life we no longer lived. That morning, I was alone in the kitchen, the sound of my spoon stirring cold tea clinking too loudly against the mug. The noise used to grate on Sarah. Now, it was a hollow echo in the silence, a phantom of our former arguments. A family photo from our trip to Cannon Beach last summer remained by the window, Sarah with her arms around Lily and me, all of us beaming. We appeared genuinely happy. I found myself wondering when the facade had truly begun. Breakfast is on the table, I called upstairs, already knowing Lily wouldn't reply. I had heard her bedroom door slam shut just moments before, a sharp, definitive sound. Being 17 is difficult. Grieving at 17 is a uniquely brutal experience. But witnessing your child transform into a stranger is a pain all its own. The sedan was parked at the driveway's edge, coated in a film of pollen and grime, looking as if it hadn't been touched since her funeral. Sarah had a ritual of washing it every Sunday, buffing the hood to a perfect shine. She used to say a woman's car was a statement about her. I didn't care for statements, I just needed the money for the gas bill. I fetched the spare keys from a kitchen drawer and stepped outside. A light drizzle had started again, the kind of misty Seattle rain that seeps into your bones. I slid into the driver's seat and pulled the door shut. The air inside was musty but held her scent, a mix of her floral perfume, leather, and something else I couldn't place, something that felt like a memory. My hand paused for a fraction of a second before I reached for the glove compartment. The latch clicked open with a startling loudness. Inside were the expected items, registration papers, an old charging cable, a pair of sunglasses. I laid them out carefully on the passenger seat, one by one. And then my eyes caught it. A small, black USB drive, tucked away in a deep corner. It was unmarked except for a tiny label bearing a single handwritten letter, M. I simply stared at it. It was just a letter, just a piece of plastic. But I felt a shift deep in my gut. This was no longer just a glove compartment. It was the beginning of a story I was not ready to hear. Holding the drive in my palm, with the rain tapping a rhythm on the windshield, I was suddenly no longer just a widower cleaning out a car. I was a man on the precipice of a truth I had never anticipated, and I wasn't certain I wanted to discover what it was. I didn't plug it in immediately. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the small device as if it might detonate. The letter "Chlem" on the label was smudged, written hastily. The handwriting wasn't Sarah's, that was the first thing that struck me. Her script was always neat, each letter perfectly formed. This was hurried, personal. A name, perhaps. I took the drive upstairs to the study, Sarah's study, though I had stopped calling it that after she died. The room still held her scent. Shelves were lined with books on immigration law, a certificate from a refugee aid organization hung over her desk. It had been her life's work, helping displaced individuals navigate the legal system. She rarely spoke of the specifics, usually just saying, "I'm doing some good," before changing the topic. The laptop screen glowed to life. My hands hesitated over the keyboard. For a fleeting moment, I considered putting the drive away, pretending it never existed, but it was too late. The USB clicked into the port, the sound echoing in the silent house. A single, unlabeled yellow folder appeared. I clicked it open. Inside, I found dozens of files, letters, photos, and PDFs with cryptic codes and numbers. I opened the first document. The words materialized on the screen. "Dear Sarah, thank you again for agreeing to help. I honestly don't know what I would have done without you. Marco, I froze. The name Marco was foreign to my life. It didn't belong in Sarah's life either, at least not in the one I knew. A knot formed in my stomach. I opened another file. I'm so scared. Eli's fever hasn't broken in days. I know I said I wouldn't ask again, but if you can help with the clinic, another, Eli asked about you again. He keeps saying he wants to fly kites like last time. He misses you. And I do too. My mouth was suddenly dry. The blinking cursor on the screen seemed to taunt me, daring me to continue. The photos were next. A man with weary, deep brown eyes. A boy of about 7 or 8, with light hair and a bright smile. In some photos, they were alone. In others, Sarah was there, her arms around them, laughing, smiling in a way she used to smile with us. I recoiled from the desk as if it were on fire, my knees buckling. I grabbed the chair for support, my breathing ragged. Who was Marco? Who was this boy? Who had Sarah truly been? I didn't hear the door open until it was too late. What are you doing? Lily's voice pierced the haze like a shard of ice. She was standing in the doorway, a hoodie pulled over her shorts, her eyes puffy from lack of sleep. Her gaze flickered from the screen to the USB drive, then back to me. Are you spying on Mom? Her voice trembled with anger. Lily, no, you're going through her things like she was some kind of criminal, she snapped, stepping into the room. She's dead, Dad. Can't you just let her be? My mouth opened, but no sound came out. The weight of it all was crushing. She spun around. You're unbelievable. The door slammed, leaving me alone, staring at the screen, at a version of my wife I didn't recognize, a version now reflected in my daughter's fury and a stranger's eyes. That night was sleepless. I lay in bed, staring at the darkness, the gentle rain whispering against the glass as if sharing a secret I couldn't comprehend. My thoughts were a relentless cycle of names, dates, and letters, dominated by the image of Sarah's arms wrapped around that boy. The expression on her face, the way she looked at him, was the same way she used to look at Lily. At dawn, I rose, made coffee, and returned to the study. I opened the folder again, this time more slowly, allowing the truth to sink in. The files were not random. The letters from Marco spanned years, some filled with affection, others purely practical, but one constant remained, the boy, Eli. His name appeared in every message. Next, I tried Sarah's email accounts. Most were protected, but one was still logged in. The inbox was wiped clean. The USB must have been her private storage, a separate world. I turned to the financial statements I had been avoiding for weeks. I wasn't searching for sums, but for a pattern. And there it was, transfers made on the 1st and 15th of every month. The amounts were small, designed to avoid suspicion, but they had accumulated over time into thousands of dollars, all directed to the same account. The recipient was listed only as initials, MA, but I needed no further proof. I copied the account number and went back to the scanned documents on the drive. One PDF was a rental agreement, a lease signed 3 years prior. The address was in South Seattle, in the Rainier Valley, a neighborhood I rarely went to. I stared at the address. The last time I'd been in that part of town, Lily still had braces. We'd gone to an art fair, and Sarah had insisted on taking a longer route home to steer clear of traffic. It struck me then that perhaps she hadn't been avoiding traffic at all. I didn't tell Lily I was leaving. She hadn't spoken to me since our confrontation. I left a note on the counter and took the keys to my car. The roads were slick, the clouds hanging low and heavy. Seattle always appeared soft in the morning mist, like a painting left in the rain. During the drive, I rehearsed what I might say. Asterisk, I'm her widower, asterisk, no, asterisk, I found your letters, asterisk, too accusatory. Asterisk, I just need to understand, asterisk, that felt closer to the truth. It took 40 minutes to find the address, a simple 2-story apartment building situated between a taqueria and a laundromat. The building's paint was peeling and a bicycle rack was rusted, but a small garden near the entrance was neatly tended, with lavender and sage planted in tight rows. I parked across the street and waited. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I saw them before I was prepared. A man came out of the building, carrying grocery bags, his dark hair pulled back. Following him was a boy with a backpack, chattering excitedly as he bounded down the steps. The man laughed. I didn't need any confirmation. It was them. He was Marco. And the boy was Eli. Even from that distance, I could see it in his features. The light hair, the shape of his nose, the way his lips curved into a smile. He looked just like Sarah. I should have gotten out of the car, walked over, and said something, anything. But I was paralyzed, my heart hammering against my ribs, my hands gripping the steering wheel as if it were the only thing keeping me from falling apart. Across the street, Marco adjusted his coat and gently urged Eli forward. The boy skipped ahead, waving to someone down the street. Marco followed, his steps quick yet deliberate. They vanished around the corner. And I remained frozen. I didn't weep or scream. I felt a silent collapse, as if something deep inside me had quietly imploded without a sound. By the time I returned home, the sky had deepened to a somber grey, and the house felt colder than before. Lily wasn't there. Her dinner plate from the previous night was still in the sink. The note I'd left lay untouched. Her bedroom door was shut. I didn't knock, lacking the strength for another argument. Instead, I made tea and gazed out the window. The tree in our backyard was beginning to turn, its leaves tinged with gold and red, heavy with the coming of an early autumn. I almost didn't hear the silence break behind me. I read everything. Lily's voice was quiet but sharp, a whisper meant to wound. I turned to see her by the staircase, holding the USB drive. Her face was flushed, her eyes swollen from crying. My mouth opened, but the words wouldn't form. You found it in Mom's car, didn't you? She asked. The pictures, the letters, everything. I could only nod. I wasn't looking for it, I managed to say. I wanted to clean it out before selling it. That's all. Is it true? Her voice broke. Did she have another family? My throat felt tight. I don't know if it was a family, Lily. I don't know what it was. She shook her head. Don't lie to me. Not now. I took a step toward her, but she recoiled. You always resented how close I was to her, she said. You were always disappointed in everything, in me, in her. And now that she's gone, you're digging through her secrets like it proves you were right all along. That's not fair, I whispered. I didn't want any of this, but you kept reading. Her hand trembled. You didn't stop. No, I admitted, my voice low. I didn't. She swallowed hard, tears welling up again. I hate this. I hate that she's not here to explain. I hate that I don't know who she was. And I hate you for showing me. The word struck me like a blow, but I didn't flinch. She turned away. I'm going to Grandma's. Lily. No, she ran up the stairs, and I heard drawers opening, a bag being packed. 10 minutes later, the front door slammed shut. I didn't follow her. I just stood there, holding the now cold mug of tea, staring at the empty space where she had been, wondering how many times a heart could break before it gave up on holding anything together. The next morning, I was back in Sarah's study, surrounded by the life she'd left behind. Her desk was still perfectly organized, as if she had just stepped out. The silence in that room was more profound than anywhere else in the house. I stood there, uncertain of what I was even looking for. Clarity, perhaps. A final sign. Then I recalled the USB folder and a scanned document with a line at the bottom, * all documents secured in safety deposit box. Key in top right drawer, jewelry case *. I moved with a sense of dread, as if opening the drawer would reveal something I couldn't bear to see. There, beneath a pile of old receipts and business cards, was the small wooden jewelry box I had given her for our 5th anniversary. When I lifted the lid, I found it, a small silver key with a numbered tag from a bank downtown. I drove there on autopilot, not telling anyone where I was going. The teller at the front desk recognized Sarah's name. Apparently, she had been a regular customer for years. After a quick signature verification and a moment of awkward silence, he led me to a private vault room and left me alone with the deposit box. It was secured only by the simple key. Inside was a thick folder, 3 more flash drives, and a sealed envelope addressed to me. My breath hitched. I didn't open the folder first. I opened the letter. Sarah's handwriting, firm and familiar, filled the page. A bit rushed, but unmistakably hers. *Alex, if you're reading this, it means something has happened. Maybe I'm gone. Maybe you found the drive. Maybe you already know more than I ever managed to say. I don't know how much time I have, but I know I owe you the truth. All of it. I made mistakes. I sat down, the words blurring for a moment before I forced myself to continue reading. She wrote about Marco, how they met at a volunteer clinic for undocumented immigrants. How he was terrified, alone, and trying to protect his baby. How, during a period when our marriage felt cold and distant, she had crossed a line. It wasn't a long affair. She wrote. It was just one night, a night that changed everything. I thought I could walk away, that I could forget, but I couldn't. Not when I found out about Eli. I didn't tell you because I was terrified of losing you. Of losing Lily. I told myself I was protecting our family, but really I was protecting myself. She explained how, 3 years ago, Marco had re-entered her life, desperate, with Eli sick and facing deportation. She couldn't turn her back on them, couldn't let a child suffer. She had helped with legal papers, medical expenses, and yes, money, quietly, regularly. I know I should have told you. I know this is too much to ask, but if you can find it in your heart to forgive me, please look after them. Not Marco, he's strong. But Eli. He's just a boy. He didn't ask for any of this. And protect Lily. If anything I've done puts her at risk, shield her. Whatever it takes. Everything else, documents, names, accounts, is in the folder. I trust you, even if I didn't deserve to. Always yours, Sarah. When I finished, I didn't cry. I just sat there, the letter trembling in my hands, feeling as if the world had tilted on its axis. And yet, for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of understanding. I didn't drive home immediately. I sat in my car outside the bank, watching the city move around me. Nearby, a construction crew was breaking up the pavement. A man in a suit hurried past, speaking into his phone. Life was proceeding, oblivious and unchanged, while I held a letter that had fractured mine. When I arrived home, the house was silent. Lily's room was still vacant. A single text from my mother-in-law buzzed on my phone, *She's here. Safe. Give her space. I looked at the screen for a moment, then placed the phone face down. That evening, I opened the folder Sarah had left. It contained names, contact logs, medical records. One document detailed her petition to help Marco apply for legal residency. Another was a birth certificate for Eli, listing Sarah as the mother. I thought about the little boy and his father, who now bore the weight of a life built on secrets. What had Sarah been to them? A savior, a secret, a ghost. The next morning, I drove back to Rainier Valley. I didn't call ahead. I stood across the street once more, this time clutching the envelope Sarah had addressed to Marco. He answered on the second knock. His eyes widened in recognition, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. "You're Alex," he said softly. I nodded. Yes, he glanced behind me, as if expecting someone else. His voice trembled slightly. "Is Lily okay?" "She's with her grandmother." A pause. "Would you like to come in?" His apartment was small but tidy, with the faint scent of lavender and something warm cooking. I perched on the edge of the couch as he poured tea without asking, his hands moving with a graceful tension. "I don't know what you've been told," he began carefully, "but I never wanted to destroy anything. I believe you," I said, and the words felt true. I slid the envelope across the table. "She left this for you." He didn't open it right away. His fingers traced its edges as if trying to absorb the message within. I loved her, he whispered, his eyes glistening. Not in the way you did. Not with a house and a wedding ring. But she saved us. I let his words settle in the quiet space between us. I could have argued, could have corrected him, but what would be the point? Eli thinks his mother worked far away, he continued. That she was too busy to visit often, but that she cared. I just never explained. I nodded. And now, he asked, his voice small. What happens now? I didn't have a clear answer. I only knew that I saw a boy who looked like my wife, a man who had carried an immense burden alone, and a daughter who needed me to be more than just angry and betrayed. So I said, we figure it out. Slowly. Kindly. For the children, he looked up, his expression one of surprise. You don't have to do this, he said. No, I whispered, tears finally stinging my eyes. But someone does, and for the first time since Sarah died, I didn't feel like I was fracturing. I felt like I was beginning again. Not from nothing, but from truth. Lily returned 3 days later. She didn't knock or text. I just heard the front door open in the afternoon, the sound of her sneakers on the tile, and the heavy thud of her bag hitting the floor. I was in the kitchen, slicing apples. For a long moment, we were both silent. Then her voice, flat and guarded, broke the quiet. So, did you meet them? I didn't look up from my task. Yes, she moved closer. And? It was complicated, I said, setting the knife down. But they aren't monsters. Marco isn't the villain. He's just someone who made hard choices. Like your mom. Like me. She gave a bitter laugh. Choices, right? I turned to face her. Lily, I know you're angry. No, I'm confused. I'm disgusted. I thought I knew who she was, Dad. Her voice cracked, but she pushed on. She was my hero. And now I don't know if she even wanted to be my mom, or if I was just the family she settled for. I took a breath and stepped toward her. Don't say that. Why not? Tears welled in her eyes. You're thinking it, too. I shook my head. No. I'm heartbroken. But I don't believe you were ever second. I think she was torn, and she made the worst possible choice. She hid instead of facing it. She crossed her arms, her jaw set. I don't want to meet that boy. I don't care who he is. You don't have to, I said gently. Not now. Maybe not ever. But I want you to understand something. I reached into a drawer and pulled out Sarah's letter, the original. I held it out to her, and after a long hesitation, she took it. I don't need to read her excuses, she muttered. They're not excuses, I said. They're the truth. She didn't have the courage to tell us when she was alive. And maybe they're the only way we can move forward. She stared at the envelope as if it might ignite. Then she walked past me and went to her room. This time, the door closed softly. That night, on my way to bed, I paused outside her door. A light was on underneath. I considered knocking, then decided against it. Some grief needs its own space. Some forgiveness cannot be rushed. I didn't hear her cry, but I was sure she was. And I didn't cry either. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering about the different versions of Sarah that had existed. The wife, the mother, the woman who held another child's hand while ours waited at home. And still, I missed her. God help me, I missed her. Not just the woman I thought she was, but even the flawed, secretive one I now knew. Because even in her betrayal, she had tried to leave us with something softer than pure rage. The next morning, I sat by the window and wrote a letter of my own. Not to Sarah, but to Eli. Asterisk, dear Eli, you don't know me. Not really. Maybe your father has mentioned my name. Maybe not. That's okay. I'm not writing to confuse you or to claim anything from you. I'm writing because sometimes the adults around you make choices that leave children holding questions they never asked to carry. My name is Alex. I was married to your mother, Sarah. I don't know what she told you. Maybe you think she was a woman too busy to be around. Or maybe you've always felt her absence and made peace with it. But the truth is, she loved you quietly, from a distance, in the only way she thought she could. That's not enough. It wasn't fair to you, and it wasn't fair to my daughter, Lily, either. But here's what I need you to know: your existence is not a mistake. You are not someone's secret. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a boy with a full laugh and a curious mind. A boy who loves science experiments and still sleeps with one leg outside the blanket. A boy who runs faster than his father can keep up and who asks why more often than most people have answers. I know these things because I saw you once from across the street, and in that moment, I saw my wife smile on your face. It stopped me cold. I won't pretend this is easy for any of us. My heart is still heavy with grief and betrayal. And Lily, she's still trying to understand why the woman who taught her how to ride a bike had a whole other life she never knew about. But despite the weight of all that sadness, I want you to know something simple and honest: you are not to blame. You are loved. You deserve every good thing. One day, if you ever want to talk, or ask questions, or just sit with someone who knew your mother in a different way, I'll be here. Not as a replacement for anything, but maybe as a bridge. Until then, be kind to your father. He's braver than most. And be kind to yourself, especially when the world feels confusing. With warmth, Alex Starr. I folded the letter slowly, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from a sense of release, a quiet exhale of something I had been holding for too long. I didn't mail it right away. I sealed it, addressed it, and tucked it into a desk drawer. A part of me hoped Marco would find it one day, or that Eli would, years from now, and understand that while the truth had hurt us, it didn't have to destroy us. Later that afternoon, Lily came into the kitchen. Her eyes were tired, her voice subdued. "I read the letter," she said. I nodded. "I don't forgive her yet. You don't have to," I replied. "But I don't hate her either," she whispered, and for the first time, her voice was steady. We stood there side by side, late sunlight slanting through the window, catching dust motes in the air like tiny, falling stars. Healing didn't look like a grand gesture. It looked like standing still and not walking away. Autumn arrived gently that year, with cool mornings and trees that seemed hesitant to shed their leaves. I started baking again, simple things like apple bread and muffins. The house filled with the warm sense of cinnamon and sugar, and something that felt almost like peace. Lily spent her days at school or in her room, but she began to drift into the kitchen more often, sitting across from me. Sometimes we talked, and sometimes we sat in a silence that had lost its sharp edges. One evening, I found her on the couch, watching old home videos. She didn't turn off the laptop when I entered. On the screen was a clip from her 10th birthday. Sarah was there, wearing a ridiculous party hat, holding a cake slightly askew while Lily giggled behind her hands. There was frosting on Sarah's chin. I watched my past self lean in and wipe it away. We were all laughing. "I miss her," Lily murmured, not looking up. I sat down beside her. "I do too." She rested her head on my shoulder, the first time she had done so since the funeral. "Do you think she meant to fix it?" she asked. I considered it for a long moment. I think she was trying, in the only broken way she knew how. Lily nodded. For now, that was enough. The next day, a message from Marco arrived on my phone. It was just a photo of Eli at a science fair, grinning next to a poster about volcanoes. He was holding a small, clearly handmade papier-mâché mountain. The caption read, **, he got second place. He wanted you to know **. I stared at it for a long time, a smile spreading across my face through a fresh wave of tears. Later, I showed it to Lily. She studied the picture for a moment too long. "He looks like Mom," she whispered. I know. She said nothing more, but she didn't look away. We didn't force anything. There were no deadlines or promises, only space. Space to feel whatever we felt without needing to apologize. Space to grieve and to grow, the kind of space that slowly, gently, allows something new to take root. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acceptance. And then one cold Sunday morning, as I poured hot chocolate into 2 mugs, Lily asked, "Do you think he'd like to come over sometime?" For dinner? She paused. Maybe. The boy, my hand stilled mid-paw. I looked at her. She shrugged. Just, if he wants to. The quiet smile touched my lips. I think he might. She nodded and took a sip of her drink, her gaze drifting to the frost-patterned window. Outside, the last leaves were finally falling. Inside, something new was beginning. Not a return to what we once were, but the start of what we could become. The first time Eli came over, he wore a navy sweater that was 2 sizes too big and clutched a book to his chest like a shield. Marco stood behind him on the porch, offering the nervous, polite smile of a father trying not to intrude. It was Lily who opened the door. They just looked at each other for a moment, 2 teenagers with nothing in common and yet everything tangled between them. Hey, Lily said, her voice quiet. Hi, Eli replied, his grip tightening on the book. The silence was thick enough to stop time. Then, to my astonishment, Lily stepped aside. You coming in or what? And just like that, he did. Dinner was a bit awkward. I kept it simple, spaghetti and garlic bread, something comforting. Marco and I sat at one end of the table, letting the kids find their own way. Eli barely touched his food, while Lily kept stealing glances at him as if trying to solve a complex equation. But when he mentioned he loved physics, her eyes lit up. That's my best subject, she said. Really? His voice cracked slightly. You like space stuff? Black holes, time dilation, all that. She twirled a noodle around her fork. I kind of want to be an astrophysicist, Eli blinked. That's actually really cool. It wasn't much, but it was a start. After dinner, the kids moved to the living room. I could hear them talking, tentatively at first, then with bursts of laughter that surprised me. Marco helped me with the dishes, the 2 of us moving in a quiet, unspoken rhythm. You've raised a good girl, he said softly. So have you, I replied. We didn't need to say anything else. A sort of peace had settled between us, one that didn't erase the past but acknowledged it and chose to move forward. Before they left, Eli turned to me. Thank you for the letter, I smiled. You're welcome, and for tonight, he added. It was nice. He hesitated, then said in a small voice, can I come again sometime? A warmth spread through my chest. Of course. Marco squeezed my hand before they stepped out into the cold night. I watched them go, a boy and his father, walking back into the darkness, but this time, not into silence. Not into shame. Later, as I was turning off the lights, Lily came to stand beside me at the front window. He's okay, she said simply. I nodded. He is. She leaned against my side, and we stood there for a while, watching the streetlights flicker on. There was no grand finale, no sweeping music, just a porch light left on, 2 mugs in the sink, and a home that had stretched its walls wide enough to hold more than one truth, more than one kind of love. Because sometimes healing isn't about going back. It's about building something entirely new and having the courage to let others in. Weeks turned into months, and what had begun as cautious visits settled into something quieter, more natural. Eli started coming over on Sundays, sometimes for dinner, other times just to sit at the kitchen table while Lily did homework and I folded laundry. He brought stories from school, science facts he'd memorized, and once, a wilted sunflower he had tried to grow on his windowsill. It had barely survived the winter light, but he was immensely proud of it. Next time I'll try basil, he announced. I'll help you, Lily offered. He looked surprised, but he nodded. They rarely spoke about Sarah, not directly, but her absence was a gentle presence in the room, a shadow that no longer held fear, but simply reminded us where the light once fell. Marco came sometimes, too. At first, he hovered near the door, perpetually ready to retreat. But then one afternoon, he brought a container of homemade tamales and a photo of Eli as a baby. We sat at the kitchen table, sipping cinnamon tea, while Lily asked cautious, curious questions. He used to sleep on my chest, Marco said, smiling at the photo. He'd curl up like a little bean, so warm I thought my heart might melt. I listened quietly. The truth was, I never saw Sarah hold Eli. I never saw her be that mother. But I could imagine it now, not to excuse the deceit, but to accept the full, complex humanity of the woman I had loved. The flawed, divided woman who had tried, in all the wrong ways, to do right by everyone. That spring, Lily and Eli decided to enter a joint project in the community science fair. They built a model of the solar system, painting each planet by hand and rigging tiny LED lights to simulate their orbits. As they presented it under the auditorium lights, I stood in the back row beside Marco, our hands brushing by accident. Neither of us moved them away. Afterward, Eli came running down the aisle, clutching a red ribbon. "Second place again," he declared. Lily followed, her cheeks flushed with pride. "I messed up the part about Jupiter's rotation speed," he groaned. "No one noticed," Lily assured him. "You were great," he grinned at her, and I swear, for the first time, I saw something new in him, not just a resemblance to Sarah, but a light that was entirely his own. That night, Lily came into my room. She sat on the edge of my bed, her legs swinging like she was 10 again. "I don't think I'll ever stop being mad at Mom," she said. "I don't think you have to, but," she added, "I'm glad Eli's here." My throat tightened. Me too. In that moment, I understood something simple and powerful. We don't always get to choose how our story begins. But we can shape how it continues. We can choose grace. We can choose openness. We can choose family, even the kind born from fractures.